It was 1942, and the Second World War was beginning to escalate. Provoked into the war by the attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States had aligned with China, the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom to form the Allied forces. Life in America instantly began revolving around the war, as men were enlisted to fight, and industries shifted to aid in the wartime efforts. As war continued, the U.S. military began sending Axis prisoner of wars back to the States, hoping to extract information that could help the Allied forces put an end to the lengthening conflict. Two main interrogation sites, Fort Hunt and Camp Tracy, were established on the west and east coasts, but 10 miles away from Shippensburg, a then-secret site in Michaux State Forest played a crucial role in the United States prisoner of war interrogation system. I made the journey up to Camp Michaux to speak with retired Cumberland County Historical Society librarian David Smith to find out more about the history of the camp.
The military picked sites all over the country, hundreds of them, often in old CCC camps, to bring German prisoners or Italian prisoners, eventually Japanese prisoners, to be held for the duration of the war. This site was chosen, the CCC camp here was chosen to be one of those camps, but before it ever opened, they had this other special need, which was to interrogate prisoners. There was a site on the west coast near San Francisco. There was a site, Fort Hunt, right outside of Washington, D.C., near Mount Vernon. And those were the two main interrogation centers. And then they had more German prisoners that they could handle at Fort Hunt. So they looked for an ancillary site. So before this site ever opened as a regular POW camp, it was converted for use for interrogation. And for 30 months then, over 7,000 German prisoners were interrogated here. The goal here was to segregate the prisoners into 8 different categories. They separated the Navy people from the military people and the officers from the enlisted men. So that created 4 categories. And then the real focus of the work here was to figure out who was pro-Nazi and who was not. And so that then created the 8 categories. And then based on that information, unless they felt that those men had other important information, in which case they'd be sent back to Fort Hunt, most of them were sent to a camp somewhere in the country that matched the one of the 8 categories they were in. So you could have a Navy officer who was pro-Nazi. So there was a camp somewhere in the country where he'd get sent to for the remainder of the war.
Decades later, remnants of the camp still remain in the forest. Curious visitors can find concrete foundations for most of the buildings, along with other relics, such as the slowly crumbling barn wall. The site may eventually disappear, completely reclaimed by the forest, but the history of Camp Michaux and the men who stayed there, guards and prisoners alike, will never be forgotten. Reporting for the Slate News, Noah Schatzer, signing off.